Membership of the committee. We've got my two colleagues. Are there apologies? No?
No apologies.
We don't have any minutes at the moment, do we? So we'll have to leave that till the next meeting. Are there any interests to declare? Interest? No. Thank you. The admission of the public. Obviously, this is a public meeting, so no exclusions. There are no deputations or petitions.
Excuse me. I have a petition from my colleague, my local residents. I have a petition from my residents on Nook Lane. I have a petition from residents on Nook Lane. Yes. Wasn't sure whether to bring the originals or...
Thank you very much. This will be registered. Thank you. Right, the public question time. Are there any questions from the public? No. Members' question time. There's no other members here. So the first substantive item is objections to the proposed extension to the 30-mile-an-hour limit on Cumberworth Road and Ponker Lane, Skelmanthorpe. Karen, are you going to introduce us?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a regulation order that we advertised as a result of a planning application or planning condition for 190 dwellings and associated landscaping and infrastructure on land to the north of Cumberworth Road, Skelmanthorpe. We advertised the order last year and we received one objection, and the details of the objection is in the report, but the mainstay of their concern was that the 30 mile an hour is not adhered to at all at the moment and shouldn't and won't be in the future. The 60 mile an hour section, which is now shortened by 100 metres because of the extension of the 30 mile an hour out of the village, should actually be a 30 mile an hour as well, and that's the objection. And our response is that the extension of 100 metres is to move the 30 mile an hour to beyond the new extent of the village, where a new access is going to be in for the development, and the section of national speed limit, which is now going to be shortened by 100 metres, has always been national speed limit, despite the fact that it's street lit. And according to the Department for Transport guidance on setting local speed limits, it is not appropriate to be anything other than a national speed limit.
We're applying national guidelines to the rules to be proposed, yes?
Yeah, it's the Department for Transport guidance.
Thank you. Colleagues, any further comment?
Thank you, Councillor McBride. I've read the report, I've had a briefing. I'm quite confident that we're within the law, and the further restrictions will actually hopefully help. So I'm in favour.
Paul, anything further?
Yeah, I'd certainly support that. I think from the presentation from the officer, and again I've read the papers, and like Councillor Mather's comments, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the majority of the committee are in favour. Fine. That's approved. Yeah. The second item, which item 9, permit parking and no waiting at any time restrictions on Look Lane. Again.
Yes, again, Chair, it's me. We have the situation this time that the objector is in the room and wants to present later on, but I'll give you a brief background to it. An application was made by residents of Look Lane for the introduction of a residents' parking permit scheme outside their properties due to problems with their parking due to the shops on Newhay Road and a co-op and a local mill that had several businesses in it. After investigating, we decided that it did meet the protocol, and so we developed a traffic regulation order which was advertised between August and September last year. As part of the order, we had to install double yellow lines as well around 2 or 3 accesses that would have potentially been the place that cars would move to and cause visibility issues. So the resident has objected to the double yellow lines element of the scheme, and we believe they're necessary because we need to have visibility out the access to the lighthouse development, which is beside. Yeah, and it's a tenant, so and the gentleman's here if you want to talk to him.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Okay, we have an objection. David, would you like to present that?
Thank you for this opportunity. In common with many areas in Kirklees, there's issues parking on our streets. Along with Mrs Roebuck, as a other colleague who's going to come with me today, sadly can't make it, we've been actively involved in seeking this permit parking permission for residents on Look Lane since 2018. My first request was to the Highways Department in 1990, which obviously was unsuccessful. At present on street, I found this week while gathering information for the petition there, we've got one resident seeking a car and then 2 younger residents actually taking driving lessons, potentially increasing car ownership again on the street. And we feel that reducing the length of the permit parking by the length of the double yellow lines proposed would clearly obviously impact on further on parking. We've got experiences firsthand of people parking on our street and actually going up to HRI, which is a good 15-minute walk. Also, I've seen people parking on our street working locally in Marsh, and also regularly now Marsh Mills businesses, and then later on in the evening people visiting the gym, fitness gym in Marsh Mills as well, park on the street. So one of the proposals was to extend the opening hours, the restriction hours to 10 PM, which thankfully Highways did. There are 2 residents additionally who work shifts in the NHS, and they find difficulty parking when they return home from work after a night shift. There's one resident who actually has a blue badge permit entitlement for her disabled children, but out of consideration has held off applying for the yellow parking bay outside her house, realising that would further impact on permit parking. If we were to obtain permit parking, she wouldn't do it. If we don't get the permit parking, she would apply for it. I'll say it, our original request was made in October 2018, and I have to confess that we've been less than happy with the progress of our application. We were told that there was something going to be put in place after the local council elections in 2019. Then, through a change of officers, we lost touch. Indeed, I made a formal complaint in 2019 about the length of time and the dissatisfaction with Highways. Obviously, no one could have predicted that COVID would occur, and I accept that since that, none of us been working the same way. We did submit several questions during the consultation phase, which I've got copies of if they would be of interest. And the main thing is the business of the yellow lines. The yellow lines that are proposed predominantly go across dropped curbs, entrances to parking area for the flats behind us, entrances to Marsh Mills and the little snicket that runs up to Holling Avenue. One thing that we found in the consultation phase, we questioned the need for double yellow lines at all across lowered curb edges to the entrance to the Co-op, Lighthouse Apartments, the footpath to Holling Avenue and the entrance to Marsh Mills. We did suggest that keep clear markings, which are the white H that you see across such entrances, will be sufficient. There are white H's across the entrance to the Co-op service area at the moment. They will be adequate, and again the Highway Code does support, prohibits parking on such markings, and also in front of property entrances. And we did see these as doable, forgive the expression, amendments to the proposal. However, for the first time, when I viewed the response from Highways in preparation for attendance to this meeting, we were made aware that there is a legal formula for determining the length of double yellow lines. If we had honestly heard of that in the consultation phase, I think we would have not proceeded with the application. Until now, we believed in the emails from the officer that he was uncomfortable with anything less, and he sought to prevent future complaints, which gave us some scope for amendments or alterations to the scheme. We have been advised, and this is a question for the committee, we have been advised that if our objection is sustained, there is no chance of changing the scheme, and I just wondered whether the committee had the authority to direct Highways to re-look at it, or is it a straight yes or no to this traffic regulation order. And referring to the petition that's submitted,
I don't think we have such authority other than to respond to appeal Very kind.
Referring to the petition, which all but one neighbour on the street who didn't reply have supported, we feel that the scheme as proposed does not meet the need or the wishes of residents.
Is that it, David?
That's everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Would officers like to respond to David?
Yeah, just on the first point about administration from 2018, unfortunately, I wasn't that officer involved. I've been the officer of late, and we've tried to expedite this as much as possible. Our experience shows that while H-bar markings can sometimes work, we had the opportunity here to put a traffic regulation order down, which is enforceable by our own civil enforcement team, and thus strengthen the enforcement process on this. Yes, I did accept that it would shorten the amount of available parking, but along with the permit itself, would guarantee a degree of parking that the residents don't have at the moment. From guidance in the highway code and from things we do, we would expect to put a minimum of a 10 metre line so that visibility can be achieved from the accesses. So while I accept the residents would have been happy with a lesser solution, I as an officer felt, with my experience, that we needed double yellow lines to prevent parking too close to any of the accesses. We're dealing with co-ops, trade access here, their servicing access, which needs space, and we're dealing with residents coming out of development and other. So we felt that double yellow lines was required, and because we're already doing a formal process with the traffic regulation national order for the permit, it was achievable without any extra excess.
So in your view, technically necessary to go ahead, yeah?
Yes, that was my experience. And then just the one last point on that was asked about changing the scheme as is. The only way we can do that is to re-advertise a new order with different information on.
But that could happen, yes. Yeah. Naheed, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. So the issue, I know the area really well. I know the congestion. I know the permit parking because of the hospital. This is a very congested area. Visibility is an issue at all times. And the criticism of the council usually made by the members of the public is, why can't you enforce, especially even in permit areas where other people are parking and not residents, why can't you enforce? This allowed us the opportunity to ensure that what you put in place, not only are you safeguarding the visibility, you're also making sure that if somebody goes against the regulation, i.e. the double yellow line, there is an enforcement opportunity. So no longer is it ifs and buts and being in the right place. You can actually enforce, take enforcement action. Now it does, and this is a situation up and down the country where people are acquiring cars, where it is getting more difficult, where you can't say one per household. And it is pretty, it sounds like a pretty severe way of doing it, where a drop curb and there's a yellow line. But it has been taken on board that there is sufficient parking available. And this is, after all, road safety. Now, I can't imagine, even if we went out and did another consultation, that as a local authority we would come up with any different plans. I just can't imagine it. So for me, after having been briefed, thought about it, read it myself, heard your petition this morning, I can't see another way around it, especially in that area. Since this report was coming, I have been there. I looked for it myself. I always try, and if there is local, as it is to me, I usually go out and just check for myself because I'm not a technical person, I'm not an engineer, but from a pedestrian, driver and a resident's point of view, I did check, and it is what the officers are saying, a very, very difficult call to make in relation to road safety. Thank you, Chair.
A difficult situation there. I think the fish and chip shop may exacerbate the problem, do they not? Yeah. Sorry, yes, that's true. Paul?
Thanks, Chair. I don't think I can add a lot to what Councillor Mather's just said, to be truthful. I think it's, it's always a difficult situation. I'm not from the area, but certainly in Home Valley South, we have all sorts of issues in terms of parking. And I can remember a recent scheme that we put in place, which the residents were very happy with, but then the local businesses were unhappy with. And I think it's unfortunately the case there's always some element of, if you like, compromise for residents. And I think at least with this scheme, certainly, the permit scheme is there, and listening to the officers' technical evidence around this, then it seems to me as well that the WL lines make sense as well. But I think we have to recognise it isn't a perfect solution, obviously for residents. Yeah.
It's a difficult solution, a difficult problem. And there's always got to be a degree of compromise and never an ideal solution. I know it's obvious my colleagues are in favour of rejecting the appeal, but I do think, if you want to say anything further, David, we're happy to listen.
Sorry, I left my microphone on. I do apologise.
Sorry?
I left my microphone on. I do apologise. The feeling is, I've lived there since 1989. It is difficult coming out of that entrance, but it's no more difficult, I feel, than many other areas in Kirklees around the country. I see now the council's position.
Yeah.
I have to say I'm not happy with that situation. And thankfully I've got very good relations with neighbours on the street. I think it has come to an all or nothing state of affairs, really, and I think, speaking for myself and strength of feeling, that we'd prefer not to have permit parking. We'll manage as we are, rather than the extra restriction that imposes. We'll take our chance.
That's a possibility, not to go. Naheed?
It's quite helpful, actually. That's the first time I've heard we'd prefer not to have permit parking. Is that what you're saying?
I think it brings more. I first made an application for this. I was looking through my files, 1990, and we got with Mr. Neville, if anyone remembers him. And I remember we came so close, and then things changed, and we didn't qualify because someone had been up, and we didn't have it. And ever since then, 1990, the Co-op have put restrictions on their parking. I'm not sure whether it's policed or not, but the sign warns people off. With people finding it ever more difficult to park, visiting local businesses and everything. Marsh is a nightmare. I accept that. I was on the Marsh Forum and we were forever discussing 20-mile-an-hour limits and parking issues around the area. I do genuinely think that we would, first of all, cars would be shunted up towards Westbourne Road, so the neighbours now who don't have a car outside the house all day, because I only work part-time, my car doesn't move all day, it'll be outside somebody's house all day.
What was it? Colleague Naheed, particularly. Yeah.
Boss here.
Yes, sorry, what is the question?
Asked not to have permit parking.
Yeah, that is an opportunity. Obviously, we're out dealing with an objection to a traffic regulation order. If that gets supported by officers, by councils, that's fine. I think we're open for debate with that's always been.
Put it back to the residents in that area. Do they want any change?
Yeah, it will be the scheme as is or no scheme, and I'm happy either way because it comes down to the residents' choices in life, and they know their area better. But we can do that. We can just not deliver the scheme at the end of the process.
I don't see an issue for us to go out and ask the residents if, as you say, that they would rather not have a permit scheme, then we can re-look at the issue. But as the scheme is being proposed, it's a good scheme. It allows for all of the issues we're talking about in terms of road safety. It safeguards those that live there, so they have assured parking space in front of their properties. But we're hearing, this is the first time we're hearing that you'd rather not have a permit scheme. So I don't believe there's an issue. We can go out and ask the residents again.
In the Chairman's possession there's the petition that submitted earlier, and the objection is to the length of the double yellow lines. And I didn't see all the neighbours, I have to confess, but in many of them I said, the ones I did speak to, I said, look, if we object to the length of double yellow lines, given what we've been told in previous emails, it's a take it or leave it option, and yet they've still signed to object to the double yellow lines, by inference, rejecting the permit parking scheme.
We'll be happy. Paul?
Yeah, I take the point, but we couldn't make that decision, in my view, to drop the scheme. That would have to go back for consultation with residents in a proper fashion, and I think that's and I take, you know, there is an inference there, but I think that would be, and I assume that could be did. That we could, yeah. Well, yeah. That's fine. Yes. Absolutely fine. I think I would be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we do then. Thank you.
So if we go out to consultation and there's no clear guidance, then the scheme, as worked up, as put in front of us, will be implemented.
If they want a scheme, then it will be with the application of those regulations that are being proposed, because they're in order with national law. Yeah, parking conditions. Yeah.
Yeah. If you overturn the appeal, then we have a scheme we can deliver. But as the scheme came from the request from the residents, there's no point us taking it forward unless it works for them. So we can just defer the scheme
And it will be
and have a
probably a good
discussion.
time since we've really tested the water. You've had the couple of years and so on. It is worth retesting it. Take your point. It's important to get it right before we do any significant change. Yeah. So
Could I just
defer on this? Yeah.
Could I just ask, from what you were saying there, it sounded to me as though if there was no feedback in the consultation, the scheme would go ahead. I'd much prefer to maintain the status quo as we are now, unless we get the positive feedback.
They want the proposal, they will get it, and vice versa.
Put it to the people, I like that quote.
Pardon?
Put it to the people, I think I've heard that before. The Prime Minister, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think we've moved a lot to come to terms with the local view, haven't we?
Well, the thing is, we wouldn't possibly put in place a scheme that came from the residents, and all of a sudden they're saying they don't want it. And we've got one representative who's saying, go this way. We couldn't even do that unless we go back to those same residents to tell us. And depending on what they tell us, we have a worked up scheme. We'll either go with that or we just stop. But the visibility issue, the issues still remain in terms of traffic and parking and visibility on that particular road. Are we okay?
Absolutely resolve an almost intractable problem which is nationwide. But this is how it's attempted to compromise. You're saying that the people are really having a chance to fully consider it. So let's talk with them again. Okay, that's what we'll do. We're agreed on that. We're unanimous on that. Okay.
Can I just confirm, if it's very close, we sometimes have difficulty. coming to an agreement on what we're going to do. But we will bring the details back to Cabinet to let you know either way. And we'll consult all the residents again, and they'll be asked, do you want this scheme? We'll count up all the spaces, make it very clear how much space extra you've got or lost and things like that, and we'll ask for a reply, and we'll put a reply slip in saying yes, they want the scheme, or no, they want it abandoning, and no further action will be taken. Is that okay?
It might well be still. That's life, isn't it?
It is.
That's what this is all about. Yeah.
Well, we've often come across that. We've gone back out and we've had sort of very, very close that you can't decide. And then I think we just, if it's a resident scheme that they don't want,
what the public's view is. Okay. Thank you. I think that's the end of the meeting. Thank you for your contributions.
Well.